At least it's finally done, her mother said, as she plopped down to the ground. I thought I was going to worry myself to death. Hey, relax, Mom, Rose said, as she began to jog up, approaching her mother. See, I haven't bloomed yet, and you're all done, all right? Rose replied, looking down to her. Yes, that is basically it. The only thing left is your vines, but you already know the basic techniques. According to your father, controlling them is the same as controlling my petals. It is simply instinctual, like moving your arms or legs. You don't need to be told how to do that. Okay, so that's a good thing. It means you can relax, Mom. You worry too much. You're doing a good job, Rose said. You keep on saying that you failed as a mother, but it's just not true. You've always been a wonderful mom. Actually, I think this is sort of my fault. I never really show you the appreciation you deserve. And I suppose I did react pretty heavily to finding out the truth. In your defense, you're right. The situation was, well, very complicated. It's not as if you could give me a bowl of cereal in the morning, pat me on the head, and say, by the way, honey, you're an alien. It's a big conversation to have. So, I'm sorry for not understanding, Rose said, as she gave her mother a hug. Thank you, Rose. That does feel much better. It was at that point that they heard a very familiar noise. A growl. Not from an animal. It was coming from Rose, specifically her stomach. You're kidding me, Rose said, looking down at her stomach. You're hungry again? I just fed you, Rose said, placing her hands on her stomach. Her mother laughed a bit. You mustn't be angry at your body, Rose. Remember, I told you that Okar go through the process differently than Sky Ray. The hunger that becomes ravenous, it's very normal. You're in an intense time of development, and you're using your powers a great deal for the first time. It's only natural that they are using up a great deal of energy. Your body simply wants to recover that energy. It's becoming a detriment to the speed of your development, and your body is attempting to fill the gap. Yeah, but we already ate all the food at the house. I mean, what am I supposed to eat now? Oh, don't worry about it, Rose. Her mother reached into a small pocket on the side of her dress, pulling out a cell phone. I kept this with me in case of emergencies. He should be able to handle getting us some more food, she said as she opened the phone up, dialing a few numbers and holding the phone to her ear. In short time, the phone was answered. Oh, yes, hello. It's Mary again. We seem to have run into a bit of a problem. Oh, no, it's nothing like that, she said, seeming to be answering some sort of question or response. It's just that we're out of food. Yes, I already know there's a pantry and a deep freezer. And as I said, we've eaten it all. It's all gone. No, I'm not kidding. Why on earth would I joke with you about that? Well, my daughter's a growing girl, and an Okar to boot. She needs a great deal of sustenance. Don't take that tone with me, her mother shouted into the phone. As Rose heard it, she couldn't help but, sympathize with the other end of the conversation. That was an absurd amount of food to eat. Far from normal by any measure. She could have fed an entire football team 100 times over with that. And Rose ate it in 2 days. Well, when are you bringing more supplies? Rose is going to need to eat. In fact, she's hungry right now. Okay. So, how long will it take you to get here? I suppose you're going to need some time to gather the supplies. What? You're sure you can do it that quickly? Yes. Well, thank you very much, Rose's mother said before hanging up the phone and tucking it away back in her pocket. Well, Jack says that it's no problem. It was a bit surprising to him, but apparently, gathering food and supplies won't take any time at all. It simply took him by shock a bit. He said momentarily he should arrive with more food. So, should we go back to the cabin? Rose said, putting a hand on the top of her head and scratching it a bit, as she thought about how long it was going to take before he got here with the food. Now that she actually heard her stomach growling, the feeling of hunger was beginning to set in, much faster than Rose would like. I suppose it's going to take him at least a few minutes to arrange everything. It should be enough time for us to get back to the cabin. That's probably where he'll be, Rose said, as she looked in the general direction of the cabin. Before, a sudden burst of blue emerged, about 30 foot away from where they were standing, and once again, another of those blue shimmering gateways, surging with energy, seemed to appear out of nowhere. On the other side, Rose could see what looked like the interior of a building, with lots of people moving around on the other side. And in quick order, she began to see people shuffling through with large boxes and containers. Two men carrying cases shuffled out of the, energy doorway, or gate as Jax called it. As the two men carrying the crate came through the gateway, seeing Rose and her mother, they looked a bit taken back for a moment as they looked at their surroundings. Are you Mayri? Or I guess I should say, is one of you Mayri? They said, holding the box. Yes, I'm Mayri. Was there a problem? I think we might have gotten our destinations crossed. I thought this was supposed to be a cabin. We're gonna have to redo it, he said, as in another blue flash, a completely separate portal opened, and walking through was none other than the man himself, King of Atlantis, Jax. This time at his side, a tall woman, somewhat slender, with long flowing red hair, and a red suit that, was skin tight. That thing did not leave a single curve hidden away. This woman had body, to say the least. Mr. Gabriel, sir. It appears that there was a problem with the transport. We're not at the cabin, sir. Yeah, I can see that, Jax replied. I suppose it doesn't really matter. Oh, hey, Mayri, Jax said, giving a wave to Rose's mother. And if it isn't Rose? Oh, look at you. That's a pretty little dress. Didn't expect to see you so, natural looking. But I suppose you and your mother are trying to get back to nature, as it were. Oh, so this is her, the woman with long red hair said, as she began to approach Rose and her mother. Well, she is a pretty little thing, but it makes sense. You were an adorable baby, and your mother is far from ugly. Hello, I'm Rose. What's your name? Rose asked, feeling a bit curious as to the king's change in company. Oh, I'm Emily. It's nice to meet you. That moron over there is my husband. Whoa, so you're like the Queen of Atlantis, right? Oh, don't call me that, the woman replied, putting her hand over her face. I mean, it just sounds ridiculous when you say it, and it doesn't help his ego at all. But there is something that I wanted to do. It's why I decided to come along on this little expedition with my husband, the woman said, as she started to extend her hand out, stopping a short bit before coming in contact with Rose, pointing her finger in her direction, as the skin-tight gloves that she was wearing, along with the suit, that all seemed to be one solid piece, seemed to roll itself back as if it were a liquid of some kind, revealing her bare hand, at which point she simply touched Rose on the forehead. "Now stand still for just a minute," she said, still maintaining contact with Rose. What are you doing?" Rose said, feeling very unusual about the situation. "Whoa, girl, you have it going on," the woman said. "Like seriously, you are stacked in here." What are you talking about?" For a moment, the woman whistled. "Yeah, that is some seriously impressive DNA. It's 5 times as dense as a normal human being's. No, closer to 6. "What?" Rose replied. "Oh, it's your DNA. All living things have DNA, you see, but it differs from race to race, sometimes from individual to individual. There are always slight differences between people, but for the most part, they stay pretty close together, regimented, with tiny alterations. But your genetic code is just out of this world. Are all Sky-Ray this dense?" "My genetic code? You're reading my DNA," Rose said, looking at the woman with a shocked expression, her fingers still pressing against Rose's forehead. "Yeah, it's just something I can do. My husband didn't bring me along last time. He relies pretty heavily on technology. I suppose in a way I'm sort of based in technology as well, but I'm different," she said, still beginning to look up as if she was paying attention to something in the air, but there was obviously nothing there. "Ah, man, this is complicated. There's just so much here. Normally it isn't this hard," the woman said. "What isn't this hard?" Rose replied. "Well, getting a copy, of course." "You're taking a copy of my DNA?" "Yes, that's how my abilities work." "Your abilities?" Rose said, looking at her intensely. "What abilities?" "Well, my husband over there is Mr. Tech. He relies on building everything. Everything he does is a gadget of some sort or kind. I, on the other hand, don't work that way. My abilities are, well, more based in DNA. And physical structure. I'm able to copy genetic profiles and layouts. Basically, I can make a copy of your genetic structure, of anyone's genetic structure. And then I can use that as a baseline, deciphering abilities, techniques, genetic characteristics. I know everything about you once I have a scan of your DNA, right down to how you're going to develop. And by the looks of it, you are going to be stunning. I mean, you're not bad looking right now, but trust me, sweetheart, you're just growing into it. By the looks of this, you're gonna make runway models jealous. And that's only your looks. As far as abilities, you are in another league. You definitely put humans to shame." And suddenly, a strange expression came over the woman's face. "What is that?" she said, still peering off into the air as if she was looking at something. "That's definitely out of..." And in that instant, suddenly, there was a small burst of energy from Rose's forehead as the woman pulled her finger back. "Ow!" As there seemed to be somewhat of a sizzle. As Rose looked, she could see that she had scorched the woman's finger. "Okay, that stung a bit." Rose could see burn marks on her finger, where her once perfect skin was now scarred. What a pain. "But that is definitely new," she said, looking down at her finger, still somewhat smoking. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I did not mean to do that. I don't even know how I did that," Rose said, frantically trying to apologize, and feeling terrible. "Oh, don't worry about it, sweetheart," she said, looking at her finger, as suddenly she noticed the skin begin to heal itself in rapid order. Within just a short moment or two, the burn had completely healed, and her finger was back to normal. As I said, my abilities are genetic, and enhanced healing is just something that I've picked up along the way. But what I'm more concerned about is that cluster of genetic structure inside of you, the woman said, beginning to look Rose over. That is very impressive. It even has its own defensive measures built into your genetic code that respond to intrusion and absolutely refuse to be copied. It's actually incredible. I've never come across it before, she said, grabbing Rose gently by the face and looking into her eyes. What exactly are you? I've gotten scans of both Sky Ray and Okar genetics, courtesy of my husband. He brought back samples. He knew I'd kick his butt if he didn't. But that genetic cluster wasn't in there. It's new, and without a dent, and without a doubt, exceptionally dense. Even more so than the rest of your genetic code. What are you talking about? Well, there's something in your DNA. What it is, I'm not sure. It's as if something, somehow, packed a completely unbelievable amount of genetic code within a confined section of your DNA. How to explain it? Well, basically, to try to give you a picture of it in your head, at least. Imagine a chain link forming a chain, and all the links in the chain are the same size and shape, right? That's how a chain works. But there's one specific segment that's far denser than all of the others. It's as if your genetic structure went from being a bicycle chain to being the kind of chain that you'd see on the anchor for a battleship. It's massive, and yet there it is, just strapped in with the rest. Quite frankly, I just don't know what to make of it. Are you done invading my daughter's privacy? Rose's mother shouted, stepping in between the woman and Rose. I don't believe she gave you permission to do that. Nor did I, for that matter. Sorry, it's just habit. I didn't mean to be offensive, the woman said. Well, I'd suggest you keep your hands to yourself. My daughter's genetic code is her own business, and I don't recall her asking you for genetic assistance.